This is the first of 3 drug test videos that we're going to post up and in a restricted way provide information access to meet directors. We don't want to put this up just in general, but we will provide meet directors with access to it so that they can provide anyone they need to with the information associated with how to perform drug tests. The first thing to point out is that we have gone to an annual AWPC waiver. So the waiver document you'll be provided a soft copy of as a meet director. The first thing you would be doing when you get amateur registrations for a meet is checking the annual waiver spreadsheet, which is on the Google Drive associated with WPC Canada, and you will be given access to it as a meet director. And you will check to see, has this particular lifter completed the waiver for this calendar year or not? And we will have one of these for each year. If they've completed the waiver for the drug testing and amateur participation waiver, then they do not have to redo it. They only have to do it once a year. And then when you do these waivers, you will store them locally, the signed copies, just recording in this document who has actually completed a waiver or not. In this way, wherever you store them, they're good for a year. After a year, we can get rid of them and start over again. So we record the lifter first and second name, the email address, the phone number, the date the waiver was signed, where it was signed, the meet director's name, and then the location of the signed waiver, what the address is where the waiver is located, so that if we need to get a hold of it, we know where to go and get a hold of it. This process then would be something you would do as a meet director as your entries are coming in, and you can stay in front of this by having people pre-sign the waiver even prior to them coming to the meet. So this process then will sit in the background, and this document spreadsheet will get shared with each of the meet directors as they require access to it. The waiver itself is an anabolic drug use declaration and waiver. The individual will put their name in. They need to read this and read it very carefully. That they're choosing to compete. And they give the user or the lifter gives the authority to test at any competition in the calendar year of 2021 for anabolic steroids, called drug testing for the rest of this document. And the lifter agrees that they can be tested at any WPC CP meet sanctioned with an AWC division that they are participating in. They do not have we do not have jurisdiction to test anywhere else. And they also agree that if they're found that their test is negative, is positive, then in that case, they will never be able to compete in WPC Canada AWPC division again. Then a little bit of a certification that they have not used any of they've never used any strength-inducing drugs. And also the specific substances that we test for, they have not used any of those. And that's in the second page of the document. The very bottom of the page, they print their name, put their birth date, signature, and then the date that they signed the waiver. And then the appendix has the listed items that they have to sign up. So this document has to be signed once a year by any amateur lifter. Once they have signed this particular document, again, as I said before, you would store them locally as the meet director, and you would update the main spreadsheet, which records the different, who's actually completed this waiver or not. This does not need to be done at the meet. This can be done independent of the meet. As you get your entries in, you can submit this out to people who are amateurs and ask them to complete it and send it back to you. If you are doing it at the meet, this would be the first step that the user would go through, and the lifter would go through. Once that is completed, or if the lifter is already completed, you would then go through the process of selecting the lifters to do the drug testing. Lifters should be selected at the completion of their last attempt for the event. If you're testing bench pressers and they're bench press only, it would be their last bench press attempt. If it's a 3 lift, it would be their last deadlift attempt, etc. You should not allow the lifter to go back to their seat. Lifters should be taken and seated in a specific area where they can complete the paperwork and then undergo the test. It is very important that you have water available for them and that they start to drink water right away. I believe at least 1 liter of water is a requirement, and because the ability for the lifter to urinate will be impacted by having just finished the competition. The first step is that as the collector, you're going to create the first bit of paperwork. And there's only one document now. We used to have multiples. There's only one document now that you would use. And that document needs to be completed first off by the collector. So the person who is going to be the collector will fill out the form, which comes in your package. And you will notice that they will fill out the form by typing in the collector name, by writing their name into the boxes, print in big block letters, please, the date of collection, the time of collection. And I'm going to suggest that you say yes to observed collection and yes to specimen within range, just to avoid this not being filled in later, which will cause issues when it goes to the lab for analysis. You are required to observe the collection. So you have to see the person pee into the bottle, and I'll be explaining what the bottles are and how you package them in video number 2. There is also a requirement to check that the temperature is within range, and that is again something that you do by just looking at the sample. And I'll explain how you should do that when we deal with how you manage the bottles. If you need to change this, you can. So if you wanted to say that for example, the specimen temperature wasn't within range, scratch out the X and then put a no in and put a remark in saying the temperature was not within range, so that they know that that was done and that there was just a mistake on the paperwork. You then just put an X where it says 5550 anabolic steroids, and then you're going to sign and date the document. Once that is done, this is the last time that you're going to fill any information out on the form. The balance of the information of the form is going to be filled out by the donor. So after you've completed your information, you're then going to pass it across to the donor. The donor is going to fill in the donor information, their first name, their middle initial, male or female, the last name, and the date of birth. A donor ID number is used if the person is not able to provide their last name. Everyone in our group, we need their names. We don't need an ID number. The donor then scrolls down, goes down to the very bottom of the screen, and they're going to do 2 things. First thing is they're going to sign their name, put the date down on the form. And the second thing is on the very bottom of the form, there's a little peel off label, which will again become evident when we do the demonstration of how to manage the vials and the containers. And they need to put their initials on the spot that says donor initials. And in doing that, they then are going to be enabled to securely seal the specimen so that we know that there has been no tampering. So that's the conclusion of the first of the 3 videos.